You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Abigail Seymour, founder of Camino Law in Greensboro, North Carolina, practicing in a female-owned, Spanish-speaking family law firm. How are you?
I'm just great. I hope you are, as they say down in the South.
Yes, thank you. I'm doing very well. Welcome into the Lawyer Stories podcast. It's great to have you. So to jump right in, we recently featured you on Lawyer Stories. It's lawyer_stories on Instagram and on Facebook. We shared your story with the community on November 16th, and you have an incredible story. Let me just say, there was a lot of love on the Instagram post. You could tell people genuinely were interested. They were rooting for you, and they loved it. And so I'll get right to it. You begin by telling us that you started law school at age 47, and you named your law firm Camino Law. So just tell us about that. Just tell us about the name of the firm.
Well, when I was in my 20s, I had already been married and got divorced, and I sold everything and moved to Spain. That's the first thing I did.
Okay.
I didn't speak the language. I just moved over there. I lived there for 3 years. And while I was there, I learned about this thing called the Camino De Santiago, which is a pilgrim's road, which goes from all of Europe. But in Spain, it goes from the border of France and it goes across the country. And it was I walked it. It's a huge part of my life. And so it was very important for me when I was naming my law firm. I didn't want to name my firm after myself. I wanted to be able to grow and have multiple practice areas. And I just didn't want it to be named for me. And I speak Spanish, so I wanted it to be a Spanish word. And all of a sudden it just came to me. I was like, Camino Law. So, so I do it as a DBA, but it's, that's where the name came from.
Okay. No, that's awesome. So you had a career beforehand. You were a writer, you were an artist. Tell us.
I had a lot of careers.
You had a lot, but I think you kind of highlighted those. You spoke about those.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, being a writer, being a photographer, and tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I came from a very ambitious and sort of achievist family. I have my grandfather was an attorney, my uncle's an attorney, very accomplished, intelligent, thoughtful people. I'm the youngest of a bunch of siblings. And I was sort of like the Tigger of the family, just sort of bouncy and energetic and very artistic and creative. And so I just never saw myself as an attorney in the way that I thought attorneys were supposed to be. So I always sort of bent towards creative endeavors. And when I was choosing where to go to school, I wanted to go to film school. I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so I ended up going to NYU. I went to their film school first. I went to Tisch.
You went to Tisch.
Yes.
That's a great school, by the way.
It's an amazing school. And I was there when Philip Seymour Hoffman was there, when Adam Sandler was there. It was an amazing time.
I like Adam Sandler.
I used to see, I know. I used to see Philip Seymour Hoffman in the elevator. And he wasn't hugely famous then, but we shared a name. So I was always I wanted to befriend him. But yeah. Bill Macy, David Mamet was running a workshop then. It was just really incredible time. So So then, because I just fall in love with everything, I was like, well, maybe I want to be an actor. I don't know. I want to do the theater. So I got involved in the theater. I worked on Broadway, not on Broadway, but I worked for a production company. I was the assistant to this big producer who produced the Guys and Dolls. I was just all I shouldn't say all over the place, but this was nowhere in that necessarily was it obvious that I was ever going to become a lawyer. However, it was New York and it was an amazing time. And the thing I loved to do more than anything else was take the subway down and go to Superior Court and watch trials.
Really?
And
Where
I
did you,
thought,
that's incredible.
yeah.
So like, where did you get that interest from?
Well, my brother was, I mentioned him earlier. He's the Peloton person. He was an attorney at the time at the U.S. Attorney's Office under Giuliani. So this tells you how long ago that was.
Wow.
And he would sort of like my tour guide. I would go down and meet him for lunch, and he would take me, but he was in the federal stuff, and I would just go over to Superior Court and go to the clerk's office and just say, what's going on in some courtrooms.
Did they know you? Like they were probably like,
they kind of did. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing there. Like I thought, well, maybe I'm studying for like the theater. Maybe I'm learning about, right? I don't know. I just knew it drew me so powerfully in, and it was just truly my favorite place to be.
Was it like watching trials? Were you watching?
Yes.
Trials?
Yeah, I was watching trials.
Do you think so? There's like a connection between you being in the theater and like watching like the theatrics of it?
That's what I wasn't sure of. I was like, am I, is it the narrative? Is it the story? Is it the law? But I also, and this is true story, this was right around the time that JFK Jr., may he rest in peace, was studying for the bar. And he failed. I think he failed it two or three times. Yeah. It was big news. Poor guy, was awful. But I also just thought, I'm never going to be able to pass that test. No way. Like, I just did not think. So it was the classic projection into the future. Like, I remember being worried about paying property taxes on a house I didn't even own yet, or I didn't even own like I was worrying about a bar exam when I hadn't even thought about going to law school. I had already quit before I'd begun. So, but something there drew me, and I felt at home there, and I just loved it. And it's so funny, even today, when I'm in little district court here in Greensboro, North Carolina, I get that same feeling.
So did you have like a moment where you were like, I'm going to do this, like I'm going to law school, that's it? Like, I was in my
20s.
Like, I'm not,
No, I was in my 20s. And I was married at that time to someone who actually became a guy named Steve Dubner, who wrote a book called Freakonomics. We were married super young, long before he was Stephen Dubner. But so I was sort of in this pathway moving forward, maybe in the theater, and did not yet have that moment. And also, I really just didn't think I was cut out for it, because I was so different from the rest of my family. And my brother's very, he's been in corporate law for 30 years, very different person. And nobody ever took me aside and said, you could be an attorney. It was more like, you should be an actress, or you should, I just kind of thought I was not smart, to be honest. And so I thought, wow, that's really neat, but that's probably not something I'll ever do.
Is that like imposter syndrome or something?
I think so. Yeah, we can talk about that. And I also just was like, I just want to be on an adventure all the time. So I felt like I hadn't done crazy things enough yet, which is sort of silly, but I decided I wanted to live overseas. So I moved overseas at the time when it would have been appropriate to go to law school, like right after I graduated from college, where most people go to law school.
Right.
So I just took this very divergent road and was like, I'm going to go live in Europe, in a country I don't even speak the language. So that was what I did instead. And as one can imagine, there was never a moment along that bumpy road that was like, hey, let's go to law school. Like once I'd gotten off the train at that point, so to speak, it was harder to get back on, but I never forgot it. And it was really a regret of mine that I hadn't carried that out. So I lived in Spain for a long time, for about 3 years. I came back, I got a publishing job. I worked as an editor for a magazine here in North Carolina. So I was freelance writing. I was doing photography. I was doing journalism photography. I had something published in the New York Times. It was really all really interesting. And then I got remarried, and it was, I was in my late 30s, and I didn't have any children, but I really wanted children. So, I just sort of was like, I want to do all the things. And, but in the back of my mind, I just always had wished I had done that,
You wish you had gone to
I wish I'd gone to law school. I just said, I just sort of was like, it was sort of like a secret, people always say, oh, well, I wish I'd done something, but,
interesting. It's a secret. They do say that, have you ever heard the expression, the law is a jealous mistress?
No, I haven't heard that.
So yeah, no, I'm serious. Like I've never Googled it, but I've heard it. So I think like for me, that means like no matter where you are, like the law is always sort of like pestering you. It's always there. It's always, even if you're a law student, you have to always be studying if like you're out and about. If you're an attorney, you're out and about, you have a case or you have some work to do, it's always there. And so
It just never leaves you alone.
Maybe
Yeah.
in your case, you had that sort of bug and like the law was like being a jealous mistress and it was in the back of your mind that like that's what you needed to do. So I think, if I had the capability with 3 computers right here, I would Google it. So I hope, I'm not misspeaking, but I'm pretty sure like that is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. It does.
Yeah.
Well, in 2006, our Elon University, which is a few miles away in Elon, North Carolina, they built a law school in downtown Greensboro.
Okay.
And it was a big endeavor and it was very exciting because then all of a sudden we had this law school in our downtown. And I remember it was the year my son was born, but all of a sudden it was every day I would drive down, Market Street and see the big flags for Elon Law. And it was the same sort of feeling like, like I wish I could do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, by then I had 2 kids and I, was very much involved. I was running a business. I started a photography business. So, I was just it was still something I'd wanted to do. And then our son was adopted from Guatemala, and ultimately much of what his case was basically an immigration law case that clearly we had help on. But I realized as I was working on it, it just really piqued my interest even more in immigration law.
Right.
I started volunteering for a local nonprofit because I was ready to transition out of my photography business. Again, I had kids in elementary school, but
Wow.
even in my mid 40s, I was like, I'm not done yet. Like I haven't even begun.
You're not fulfilled, right? Because
not fulfilled.
Right. And I think that, and I say that term because like you use that term on your website. And I think that's like a very important term that has like a lot of meaning. Like in life, you need to feel fulfilled. Like you're doing something that sort of is meaningful. And like for me, reading your story and hearing what you're doing is that, you're fulfilling yourself by finally, like, I don't want to say scratching that itch. It sounds too insignificant, but you're going to law school and you ended up doing that.
Yeah, it was, well, and the other piece of it is that when I was living in Spain, I basically drank myself into AA. So I was, had some, sort of went down this dark path. And so as my life just continued to improve and get better, and I had more clarity and more tools to sort of focus on what I wanted to do, even I was by then, in my 30s and 40s, I still felt like I was having to learn those things. And, instead of telling myself, oh, I'll never, the fear that I had as a young person that the bar exam was impossible to pass, I had learned how to just do what was right in front of me and take it one step at a time. And so I was like, well, I basically confessed to somebody at this nonprofit where I was working that I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. And it was a tight knit group. And these were all people that loved doing direct service and client relation, working with clients. And so it was not like nobody laughed at me, which was sort of amazing. Not nobody ever had, but I just, it's not something that it's a very delicate thing. You don't want to say that if you're in a situation where somebody could laugh at you, because it's such a personal thing.
Because it means so much to you, right? And you don't want to tell somebody who you think will take it lightly when it means so much to you. And it's like very personal. I get that 100%.
Yeah. And I also was just like, this just seems crazy. But even today, I still don't feel tired. I don't feel like, oh, I'm done with, I just want to retire. I'm like, oh God, I can't imagine thinking like that,
Right.
So I just had this kind of Tigger energy, like I said. And so I said, well, I'll just take the LSAT. I'm just going to study for the LSAT. And so I just took it each little tiny bite along the way. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just apply. I'm just going to see. I'm no expectations. So I kind of there's this great quote by E.L. Doctorow, the fiction writer, who said, writing a novel is like driving a car at night. You can only see a few feet in front of you, but you can make the whole trip that way.
Wow.
And I love that. And I feel like that's a great metaphor for life too, but it's just how I think about that whole journey of applying to law school and thinking about what to do was like, just do what's not right in front of you. So
Right.
then I just sort of, next thing I knew, I was like, oh my God, I'm in law school. Like it just so
Yeah.
somehow it happened, and I loved it. Absolutely loved law
You
school,
loved it.
but
And yeah, I mean,
I
I have
did.
like a lot of questions about that, but first I want to ask, yeah, well, first of all, like your lawyer story, to go back to this, like basically I was thinking about it today, and it like embodies like what I kind of set out to do. Like, your story about how you went to law school at 47, and you lived life, and then you really went, and you made the most of it, and now you have a firm, which we'll get to in a minute. But you wrote that you fought the hardest in your life to become an attorney. So like what exactly did
Mm.
you mean by that?
Well, and I can't remember. I think I made reference to this, but I'm youngest of 5 kids, and I'm 9 years younger than the next sibling up.
Okay.
And that's my sister, Mary. And she and my sister, Liz, and I all lived in Greensboro during that time. And she was very vocal about this, but she suffered from bipolar depression. She was a therapist and just this incredibly cool person. And while it was my first year of law school, she was really struggling. And we were supporting her, but I was also just distracted. I was
Yeah.
I was in my first year of law school. I had a child in 3rd grade and a child in 2nd grade. Now I lived 4 minutes from the law school. So to me,
Yep.
law school was like going to my job. So I just go all day and do my thing and then go home and study and be with the kids or whatever. But my sister was needing a lot of support. And long story short, she took her own life
Oh,
between my first and second semester of my first year of law school.
wow. Sorry.
And it was, thank you. It was devastating for our whole family, for my sister and I, my older sister and I, who were there and found her. And so it was just, but it was, I went to the dean because I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can finish this year. Should I drop out? Like, I just didn't know what to do. And to his credit, he was pretty, wasn't unemotional about it, but he was like, well, I mean, you're halfway done, like you come this far.
Right.
So, and I was a little embarrassed to admit that it was actually an escape for me, because I loved burying myself in what people hate doing, but the classes and the level of focus it took me to stay in school helped me not deal with the pain of what was going on outside. Not that I was avoiding it, but you still have to get on with your life. So that was a fight. So staying in that first year was a fight. And just I had my child, he's doing great now, but he was having some behavioral issues. I was getting a call every day from his teacher when I was in torts class, basically saying, he's run away, he's hit someone, he's bit someone, he just had a lot of behavioral problems. And so I had to try to fight just not to get, flunk out of my classes. And so it was just a lot of, bumps, let's say.
Wow.
And so, and then when I got, my husband and I split right when I graduated from law school, and I took the bar that summer. And then the day that I found out that I failed it the first time, I also found out I had breast cancer. So did I tell you, did I put that in my story?
Yeah, you put,
okay, some of it. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But it was literally the day that I said, it was like, we're, terribly sorry, whatever language it says in the letter. I was just going to get my biopsy results. So anyway, it was a fight. And every single step of the way, I was like, is the universe telling me not to do this? Like, is my body telling me not to do this? Like, am I, am I too old for this? Like there were just all those questions. And so again, to just kind of try to do it a little inch at a time along the way was all I could do. To just do the next right thing, whatever was right in front of me, just do that. And so I did finally pass the bar, but it was a fight, and I wasn't sure if I really started worrying that I was injuring myself from the stress. I was like, should I not be doing this? But I was very determined to to get there. So that's what I meant by
Sure.
saying it was the hardest thing I ever fought for. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
well, that's intense.
But there was a wonderful woman in our class who had was struggling with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma throughout the entire time we were in law school, like no hair, going through chemo. Like she was amazingly strong.
Wow.
She's doing great now, but she was fighting too. It's not like I was at all unique in that. It just was.
Did you go back to the dean and you were like, hey, guess what? Well, that just no, because that was during the bar. So.
Yeah, I should reach out to him now. I did see one of my professors not too long ago at a field hockey game, because now my daughter's in high school, and his daughter is a couple years older than mine. And he hadn't seen me since I graduated. He'd heard, that I was still around, but he was very happy to see that I was okay. So yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. That's really, personal, and that's incredible. And I'm so happy that you made it over all those hardships.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like people, everybody's got something. That's why you love. That's why you're doing this podcast.
Maybe not to that extent, but everybody does have something. But maybe not to that extent. But so, like, what was like did you find anything positive though about going to law school? Like, sort of at like a little, 47. What was like the positive?
Absolutely. Well, one of them was just, I think that this is one of the professions where wisdom comes in handy. There were a lot of cultural references. There were case references. There were things that just made sense to me just because I'd either read about them already or lived through them, or was just an engaged human being and have been reading the New York Times for 20 years. You just sort of follow life. I do think that when I was in college, it was probably harder, so that even, I don't know, the academics, it's not like I was at the top 5 of my class or anything, but I hung in there. Even I had all this other stuff. So I do think that was an advantage to just have that sort of, I had lots of jobs, I've been a temp, I've been at waited tables. Like I just understood the sort of slog, and it wasn't that daunting to me.
And what's interesting, like you mentioned, you sort of made it like a 9 to 5 and then you went to your kids. Like, I think like that's actually kind of important. And I've mentioned it before on the show. Like, it seems like time management, you had that down.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because I think like, maybe not myself. Well, maybe myself, but like, you go to class at like 10 o'clock, you go home, you eat lunch, you take a 3-hour nap, and then you're, studying. But like, if you treat it,
I couldn't do that. And I know there were people who did, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm a night person. I sleep all day. And I'm like, I just can't.
And then you get to night and it's like, oh, well, this so-and-so are doing. Yeah. So I think,
I think that again, that sort of the unsexy routine of it was what got me through. There was just nothing, slow and steady wins the race. But I do think that daily routine and staying on that schedule was really helpful. And it helped me a lot for bar prep too.
For sure.
To just stay focused on eating healthy and exercising and getting enough sleep. There's this temptation, like, I'm just going to pound a bunch of 5-hour energies and take my, I was seeing people give each other Adderall and stuff. I was like, oh, this is so messed up, So that's the dark side of that world.
Right.
But that was not, I was blissfully, not part of that at all. I was older than a lot of the kids' moms that I was in school with. And that was very humbling,
So if you had advice to give to somebody who decided to go back to law school after, say, another career or two, like, what would that be?
Oh, I think it's absolutely doable. I think it's a joy. And I think my only regret is that I didn't start it earlier, because I won't have as much time in this life to do this work. So if it's, I feel also like if you have even an inkling to do something like this, then you should be doing it, because most people don't. So if somebody's like, all I've ever wanted to do was walk, go see the Great Wall of China. Well, that means that you're supposed to do that. Like if there's a drive in you to do that, if there's a drive in you that says, all I've ever really wanted to do is go back to school or go to law school or go to med school. I know a guy who was a banker, and in his 50s, he went to medical school, and he's now a general practitioner. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you have that energy to do, I didn't go to a state school. I wish I could, because I've got a lot of debt now, but, that's going to be true no matter what. And I can't take that with me. So maybe I'll maybe I'll pay it off before I leave this, shuffle off this mortal coil. But yeah, so I think that I also got a lot of energy and vitality from being around the younger students. So
that's great.
I mean, I had to just get over myself because I was always like, oh, I feel so old, and it was just stupid. And I got over that pretty quickly because they didn't make me feel that way.
No. So your website says, so first of all, like, how did you decide to open your own firm?
Well, I now realize that I've been an entrepreneur and worked for myself since 2004. I have not. That's when I left my editing job and went out on my own and started my own like freelance business. And then it went into a photography business, which I had for 10 years. And so, but I was pretty beaten down when I hadn't passed the bar the first couple of times. Everybody who has not passed the bar the first time, we all know how that feels. It's a terrible feeling. And so I was like, temping, and I worked for somebody who was crazy. I was doing swim lessons. I was just doing whatever I needed to do to get through it. So I was so grateful to get a job at a firm. I'm still friends with everyone there. They were so kind to me. I was a brief writer because I hadn't yet passed the bar, but I was working in the immigration department. I was a writer. And I was like, I could be part of someone else's firm. Like I might be able to do that. Like I'm not really good at it, but I'm going to try. And if there was any firm that I could be part of, it would have been this one. And I loved them. I was there for about 6 months, but already I was like, there's another way they could be doing the software. There's a different way you could try this. Like I was already like redesigning logos and like, excuse me, thinking about marketing and just thinking in entrepreneurial terms the whole time. And nobody who's an entrepreneur wants anyone else coming in and saying, oh, I have an idea for how you could do this better. So I just realized pretty quickly that I was just an entrepreneur at heart. So I went out and started my own.
Wow. So that's incredible. Like, so now you have a firm. How long have you had the firm? How long have you had?
We just celebrated our 2-year birthday in October.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And so it was super bumpy, as I started out in like one of those little virtual office places, a place called Regis. I had, you just start the way you start anything, but because I'd had my own small business before, some of the things that would have been daunting to me were not so much. Like I knew how to set up my QuickBooks. I knew how to get help on all the, all that kind of stuff. And our bar association has a fantastic small firm section with this great woman who gave me, an hour of her time and told me what to do. I just had a lot of guidance and a lot of help. And then there's this whole industry out there, as you know, of small firm guides, small firm coaches. There is just great software. Like there's just a lot of resources out there.
So what would your advice be for entrepreneurs? Someone who's even, you've had a few businesses, so not even just like a law office, but any entrepreneur, what's your advice?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it is to be very clear on the things you're bad at, because you're not going to be good at all of them.
Right.
And not let those things slow you down. Just find somebody to help you get stronger at those things. Okay. So, I think that's the easy, I think that's the best part, because I think the biggest mistake that I can make, or any entrepreneur can make, is just to wear too many hats. And I read this book years ago called The E-Myth, and it's sort of the Bible of small business. Are you familiar with that one? Does that ring a bell? No. It's basically the idea that you can be the technician, or you can be the business owner. And that sometimes people who are good at things, if you're a good baker, you're like, oh, maybe I should open up a bakery. But if you're really a baker, you're not going to be as good at being the owner as well. So you need to sort of separate out those two jobs and really understand what parts of your job is the manager part and what part's the technician.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Anyway, so yeah.
So you consider, so your website says your firm is recovery friendly. Just wanted to ask you what that meant.
Well, I broke my anonymity here by saying that I am in and was in AA, but I don't really put that on my website per se. Just I put it. It's a little bit more of a secret whistle, dog whistle, so to speak, to people who are in recovery. I really want to help people who are struggling with addiction. This is a passion of mine. And so I work with parents who have been in active addiction and who are now in recovery and who are trying to get their kids back. And so that is a very rewarding part of custody law for me. And then I also work with grandparents who have lost a child. This is really tragic, but it's incredibly common with the opiate epidemic, who've lost an adult child to fentanyl, which is really, I have like 4 cases like this, and they have left behind small children.
Wow.
And the grandparents are like, we can't register them from school. We don't have any paperwork. We don't have custody. We don't have anything legal. We can't get their benefits. We can't do anything. So we're able to help them, basically take care of the paperwork for that. So, but I just love resurrection stories. I love people who have been through things and have come out on the other side. And so for me, that's very often recovering addicts. And so a lot of people came to me without knowing that was true. So I just kind of put that, and they didn't even see it on the website. That just happened to be their story. But I would love to be able to attract and bring in people who are in that situation, because people in active addiction or in recovery are often really misunderstood. It's very hard to get rid of that stigma from themselves if they've been clean for a couple of years, and they're trying to get their kids back. People are like, well, they might relapse. There's just a lot of things to overcome in addition to dealing with trying to, get clean. So,
wow.
So I do love recovering people very
That
much.
sounds like a niche too. Like, that sounds really interesting. I mean, do you know any other attorneys who are like sort of doing that sort of thing? Like, not
really. I mean, what's interesting is that we have a drug treatment court in Greensboro, and most cities have them. And I love, when I was an intern for our public defender's office, that was my favorite part, was to work in the drug treatment court. That's where basically it's a not diversion. I mean, I guess it's diversion, but you basically, instead of doing time, you go through a program, you check in with the court frequently, you stay clean, you do what they need to do. And then when it's all done, they rip up your charges, so that it's a way to incentivize people to get well, as opposed to just be punished.
Yeah.
So I love that concept. And so I was really attracted to that idea. But there's lots of addicts, of course, in criminal court, because there's been, drug trafficking or possession or other issues, but it's not as well known to realize that, well, most people have a family, or they have kids, or they've lost the kids.
Right.
And so some of those cases end up being diverted into child protective services, which is not an area that I practice. But if they don't go in there, then yeah. So if I could help, I just love doing that. So yeah, it is. I hope to be able to attract even more people from that community.
And you're doing exclusive family law, right? So
I am. And I did not, I avoided it as much as I could.
Yeah. Does that bleed over like with the recovery stuff into criminal law at all?
A little bit. Yes.
Okay.
It does. And
Okay. So tell us more about your firm.
So the firm is, we rent a building that's in our downtown. It's an old house, and I wanted it to feel like a therapist's office. By the way, this is not my real house. This is not my office. This is a Zoom
come
background.
On. You don't have to say that.
But you can tell I'm kind of ghostly and sort of like being reabsorbed into it. But anyway, it doesn't look that.
You've read all those books behind you. Come on.
That's right. But it is really adorable. Adorable is too cutesy of a word. It's a lovely old house with wooden floors, and it's got a very warm spirit to it. And it's slowly but surely being furnished by us with furniture from a consignment store. And I started out with just one paralegal, Angela, who's been a friend, who's been with me from the other firm. We've known each other for 4 years now. And it was just the two of us, and then added another paralegal legal assistant, Janet. And then in September, hired my first associate attorney named Melissa. And we have a room that we have exclusively for children, because we have lots of people bring their kids.
Yeah.
People don't really think about it. It's just like going to the
Sure.
pediatrician, there's going to be kids everywhere.
Yeah.
So we have one of our
Sure.
conference rooms is just an art room. They come in and
Yeah.
they go straight into the art room. There's like a box, there's candy in there. There's a little treasure box for when they're
What
done.
kind of candy? I mean, what kind of candy?
Oh, we got dum-dums, got lollipops.
So I want to stop you right there because you touched on the word art. And one thing I loved that I read on your website, I think it's so cool. Like, and I was thinking about it today. I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting. You said you consider every family to be a work of art. So like, I love that. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I guess just because it's everybody's unique, of course, and they're always sort of patched together. And of course, what we do, it's, for example, in my family, my ex and I are now very good friends. I have a significant other. And now it's amazing, but I had a little Christmas party the other day and they were both in the kitchen talking to each other. My boyfriend made some ribs and my ex was eating them. I was like, this is the dream. This is what I want my clients to be able to do. It's not very common, but it can happen. And so, but again, it's very much stitched together and it creates a picture that you didn't expect. And it's sort of, it's not at all the way I thought things were going to turn out when I was, 20 years ago.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Like, do you think like having that experience, do you think it's important for I'm going to say this, like all attorneys who are like, or a good majority of attorneys who are, say, family law attorneys or helping people with like their, divorce or their issues or custody battles. Like, do you think like it's better for them to see an attorney who have gone through that sort of issue, those sort of issues? Like,
That's a really good question. I think, it's absolutely not, obviously it's not a requirement the same way it's not a requirement to be, a dead person to do wills and trusts. Right. So you have to, there is, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, fair enough.
But I'm just saying, like,
got it.
I hear what you're saying. And I do think that is what attracted me to doing this, because I've been through it. And therefore I think being a parent has made me better at it, just because I can, I don't know, but there's some amazing attorneys that have been doing it for 30 years and they don't have kids, and that doesn't matter,
No, it doesn't matter at all.
But I think at this stage in my life, it's very easy for me to relate to my clients. They have teenagers. I remember when mine were toddlers, I do think that was something I've been able to lean into, and it's been helpful. But what I didn't say, or maybe I did, but I used to be a wedding photographer. I wasn't just a photographer. I was a wedding photographer, and now I'm a divorce lawyer. So that's a ridiculous kind of
Did you have any of the couples come back to you for your second service? No, don't tell me.
I expect that'll probably happen, but
not yet. Well, that's good. All right. I don't
not yet.
I don't need to know.
But I was saying to somebody today that like the wedding photography or family law is like the wedding photography of the legal world, because photographers and journalists are like, oh God, I could never do weddings. And lawyers are the same way. I was just at this little holiday party with the defense lawyers, and we were talking about family law, and one guy was like, oh God, it's horrible. A lot of people really hate it. So it's,
I feel like I've heard that too a lot. Are you seeing any trends in family law? Like, is there something that's happening? I mean, I know divorce might be on the rise or separation because of COVID, but like, what sorts of things are you seeing trending? Is there anything particular coming through your office?
Well, the addiction issue is definitely trending. Definitely. Like I said, that's a big problem. The opiate epidemic's a big issue, losing people to treatment. And then just sort of the issues around vaccinations, parents disagreeing about how they're going to handle that. The school, should they go to school? Should they stay home? That's changed now, but at the very beginning, people were fighting over stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it's trends so much as just being all the same conflicts that were there, just having the flavor of whatever's happening in the world right now, but, but we do mostly custody, partly just because it's interesting to me. It's my favorite
Custody. Okay. Yeah.
It sort of crosses all socioeconomic, kids are universal in that sense. And so if people are fighting over a $4 million estate, they're going to hire the more experienced and meaner attorneys in town. Not meaner, but that's just not where my website says, we're going to keep you out of court, help you stay friends and raise happier kids, because I truly believe that's the best way forward. But there are people who are like, oh, I want to take that person down. And so if that's who they want, they'll go somewhere else, because that's just not really,
that's not you.
Our
that's
jam.
not what you're doing. Yeah. Wow.
Right.
That's incredible. Abigail, I want to let you know that here at Lawyer Stories, I'll connect you to anybody you see on the platform. If there's somebody
good.
warm connect with, I'll set you up with an email or a DM. But that's I love connecting people. So
that's great. And Sam Malai is a friend, a sort of virtual friend of mine, because I did his legal funnel course, which I love.
Did you? Okay.
And he's just the warmest, sweetest guy, and he's just been so available. I've chatted with him on the phone, and so I was so happy to see that he was one of your guests.
Nice guy.
Really nice guy.
Definitely doing some cool things. So that's great.
Yeah, he's great.
Did we leave anything out? I know we talked about your story and your firm. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I don't think so. I think I just love being a lawyer. I just get excited every time I put my little badge on, and I know that it's fun to talk to other, to know that I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, of other people. Hopefully they love their jobs too. But I think it's a big tent. I think if anybody's non-traditional like I was or am, I didn't think I could fit into this mold. And I think the beauty of it is that this area of practice, or this profession, just has room for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I don't know if I have any other, I think I'm out of questions. I know
you're so sweet to ask me. I so appreciate it.
But so go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask about your baby.
Oh, baby's doing well. I could tell you more about that offline when we stop recording. But
I want to hear about it.
I appreciate you asking that.
Oh, and I do want to ask: am I the first person that's getting to be on with your sign, or have you had other episodes with?
Oh no, we've had maybe 10, 6.
Oh really?
7.
Because I haven't seen the visual. I just saw the.
You gotta look from probably. I would say if you start watching from maybe 2 months forward, because we just got this up a few months ago, actually.
It's great. So I'm so happy, and I'm so happy for you. This is just wonderful.
Thank you
project, and I can't wait to share it with people and tell them.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. And Abigail Seymour, keep doing good work and fighting the good fight. You have a tremendous story, and I hope we can push it out to as many people as possible.
Well, thank you.
Stay right there, and everybody else, thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.